Chapter 3775. In that case, won't Hongzhuang have to stay on Penglai Island in the future? Mu Lingbing frowned. She thought that Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest would be back soon, but if Beichen was from Penglai Island, Hongzhuang wouldn't be separated from Beichen. It seemed that it would be very difficult for them to see Hongzhuang again in the future. Hongzhuang and I finally got to know each other. We haven't been together for long, and now we're going to lose sight of each other again. Mu Lingbing was depressed. She only wanted her family to be reunited and live a good life together, but it seemed that it wouldn't be easy to achieve that. Lan Yunxiao couldn't help but pat Mu Lingbing's shoulder when he saw her depressed appearance. He understood that after all these years, Mu Lingbing had already seen through many things. Her greatest wish was for her family to be reunited. Lingbing, Hongzhuang and Beichen have their own paths to walk. They're still young, so they naturally want to reach higher realms. As their parents, we should give them the space to do so. Just as Mother said, if we miss them, we can go to Penglai Island to see them. Although the journey is a bit far, it'll just take a bit more time. Besides, don't Beichen and the rest hope that we can go to Penglai Island with them? After I've settled the Lan family's matters, I'll go with you to see them. How about it? Mu Lingbing fell silent for a moment before nodding. You're right. They're still very young, so their thoughts are naturally different from ours. I can't force my own thoughts on them. Right now, I'm most worried that young Master Di's family isn't simple. I don't know if Hongzhuang will be bullied there. Lan Yunxiao's brows revealed his worry. As a member of an aristocratic family, he was very familiar with such matters. With Hongzhuang's status, no one in the outside world could compare to her. However, on Penglai Island, her status wasn't that important. He only had one daughter, and he couldn't bear to see Hongzhuang being wronged. It can't be. Mu Lingbing's eyes narrowed. If they dare to bully Hongzhuang, you don't have to worry. Mu Jintz faintly smiled. Situ's worries are the same as Yun Zhao's, so he had already probed young Master Di before this. He said that he was very satisfied with this marriage, so the matter you are thinking of shouldn't happen. What's more, with Beichen's feelings for Hongzhuang, he wouldn't be willing to let Hongzhuang suffer. That's true. The curve of Lan Yunxiao's lips softened. Back then, he had seen Di Beichen's deep affection for Hongzhuang. That was why he was assured to hand Hongzhuang over to him. He believed that Beichen wouldn't let Hongzhuang down. In the following days, Di Yujue wasn't in a hurry to leave. Instead, he toured many places under Lan Yunxiao's guidance. At the same time, he gained a better understanding of Di Beichen. Now that he knew who his biological son was, he wasn't in a hurry. After all, he had waited for so many years, so he didn't mind waiting for a few more days. Today, Di Yujue stood in front of Situ Yen and the others and cupped his hands. Thank you for your hospitality these past few days. I should return to Penglai Island. Chapter 3776. Little brother Lan, I've already stayed here for several days. It's time for me to go back. Di Yujue's face was brimming with a smile. His originally handsome face was now as elegant as a spring breeze. I finally found Beichen's whereabouts with great difficulty. I also want to reunite with him as soon as possible. Lan Yunxiao originally wanted to urge him to stay, but after hearing Di Yujue's words, he gave up on that idea. He could understand Di Yujue's feelings. He was definitely impatient. To be able to stay here for several days, he must have reached Di Yujue's limit. After all, in Di Yujue's heart, there was nothing more important than reuniting with his son. Since that's the case, then I won't urge Brother Di to stay. If Brother Di has time in the future, come visit us again. At that time, you should stay for a few more days. That's only natural. Di Yujue laughed brightly. Little brother Lan, if you have time in the future, you must come to Penglai Island to take a look. I will definitely be a good host. Alright, if there's a chance, we'll definitely come. Then I'll be waiting for you at Penglai Island. Yujue's face was full of smiles. After only a few days of interaction, he knew that Lan Yunxiao and the rest were all kind people. Beichen had lived with them for all these years, so he definitely hadn't been mistreated. At the same time, he was even more grateful to Situ Yen and the rest for taking care of Beichen for him. In the next second, a universe pouch appeared in Yujue's hand. Little brother Lan, there are some spirit stones and cultivation resources in this universe pouch. You've taken care of Beichen for so many years. As Beichen's father, I have nothing to repay you with. I can only remember your kindness in my heart. These things are just a small token of my sincerity. Lan Yunxiao hastily waved his hand. Brother D, taking care of Beichen is what we should do. Moreover, Beichen treats us very well. He doesn't need these things. Situ Yen had long regarded Beichen as his own grandson, and Beichen was also their son-in-law. They should treat Beichen well, so there was no need to thank him. Brother Lan, I know you're all kind-hearted people. From the moment you adopted Beichen, you didn't think of anything in return. But as Beichen's father, my gratitude to you can't be described with words. No matter what, I have to do something. Although these things can't be compared to the kindness you've shown me, I'm sure you'd do the same if you were in my shoes. Lan Yunxiao was silent for a moment. He could understand Yujue's feelings. On one hand, he was grateful to them. On the other hand, he owed Beichen. If he didn't do anything, he wouldn't feel good in his heart. Since Brother D says so, I won't refuse. A smile appeared on Yujue's face. That's the right thing to do. After receiving Yujue's universe pouch, Lan Yunxiao said, Brother D, take care of yourself. Yujue nodded. Brother D, if you need my help in the future, don't hesitate to ask. As long as it's something I can do, I won't refuse. Okay. Remember to come to Penglai Island when you have time. I'll introduce you to other people. We'll definitely go. Take care. Yujue began his journey back to Penglai Island. Compared to the nervousness he felt when he came to the outside world, Yujue was extremely happy and his steps were light. Chapter 3777. Yujue originally didn't need to stay in the Demon Training Tower after completing the challenge. However, he wanted to stay here and wait for the opportunity to reunite with Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Now that he had successfully reunited with Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, he could peacefully cultivate in the cultivation area. The 6-people team was immediately divided into 2 small teams. Yunjue and Ao Lingxiao cultivated in the cultivation area all day long. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others cultivated in the arena area. According to Yunjue's description, it would be beneficial for them to accumulate more killing intent before breaking through the challenge. Therefore, everyone spent most of their time in the arena. The Demon Training Tower's inheritance was a very good opportunity for them to increase their cultivation. They couldn't easily let it go. As long as they could obtain the inheritance, their cultivation would be able to increase by several levels. It would undoubtedly be of great help. Ever since they knew that Yunjue and Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were friends, the Penglai Island's cultivators looked at them differently. Sure enough, abnormal friends were also abnormal. These people were all young, but none of them were simple. As Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' performance in the arena became more and more fierce, many cultivators didn't want to fight with them anymore. They didn't want to participate in a battle where they were bound to lose. If they were injured or even died because of it, wouldn't it be a pity to lose the killing intent that they had accumulated with great difficulty? After noticing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but change their strategy. After that, they restrained their attacks a little. They only wanted to learn from each other and didn't want to kill. In addition to their arrogant provocation, the number of cultivators who came to fight with them increased. Most of the cultivators here were conceited. When they heard someone mocking them for being cowards, they naturally couldn't accept it. Moreover, although Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were strong, their attacks weren't very ruthless. Since there was no danger to their lives, everyone didn't mind learning from each other. In this way, it would be beneficial for their strength to increase. Time passed quietly in this process. With the continuous battle, the strength of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others improved again. High-intensity battles were the most helpful for cultivators to improve their strength, so their speed of improvement was also very fast. In addition, everyone's fighting style was different, so fighting with different people could enrich their fighting experience. Among the four of them, Di Baichen's cultivation had improved the most. In the past, Di Baichen had been suppressed by the cursed physique, so his cultivation had been unable to increase. Now that he had transformed into the physique of Heaven's will, the previous suppression seemed to have erupted. The speed of his improvement left Xiren in the dust. For this point, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart was also very emotional. If it weren't for the fact that her cultivation method was heaven-defying, she definitely wouldn't be able to keep up with Di Baichen's footsteps. Fortunately, her demon summoning scripture was very special. As she cultivated, there were some signs of evolution. This was something that she had just discovered. It was because of this that she was able to keep up with Di Baichen's footsteps and not be left behind. Even so, Di Baichen's cultivation speed was still faster than her. This was the terrifying part of the physique of Heaven's will. In the past, the suppression was for the sake of the later stage. Once it changed, it would be a true cultivation genius. Chapter 3778. When Xiren was a little helpless. Di Baichen's cultivation was one level higher than his. He wanted to catch up, but according to the current situation, not being left further and further behind was his greatest hope. Haven't I been cultivating with you all day? Don't tell me you don't know how I cultivate. Di Baichen said with a faint smile. Xiren sighed, it's precisely because I watch you cultivate that I feel unbalanced in my heart. Clearly, my cultivation time is not shorter than yours, but your cultivation speed is so much faster than mine. It's really infuriating to compare yourself to others. Xiren, you should get used to it as soon as possible. Shengguan Yingying's face rippled with a faint smile. In the past, you and Baichen's cultivation speed were about the same, but Baichen was under the suppression of the cursed body. Now that Baichen's cursed body has been broken, it's normal that you can't catch up. However, if you don't compare yourself to Baichen, your cultivation speed is still very fast. Yingying, you're finally comforting me. Xiren looked at Shengguan Yingying emotionally. You're right, it's better if I don't compare myself to this abnormal person. His talent is higher than mine, and with his physique that is naturally suitable for cultivation, I can't change my fate of being second place forever. Fortunately, I'm open-minded. Good luck. Once you obtain the inheritance of the Devil Training Pagoda, the situation will be different. A bright light appeared in Di Baichen's deep eyes. Now, he also urgently wanted to increase his strength. The experts in the Penglai Palace were as numerous as the clouds. Chu Yunyao alone was already a headache for them, and with Chu Yunyao's sister, if they did not increase their cultivation before returning, they would have a headache dealing with them. Moreover, the skeletons in the training ground were not simple. Only by becoming stronger could they be safe and sound. After Bailey Hongzhuang and Shengguan Yingying went to the arena area, Xiren said, Baichen, you've been cultivating especially hard recently. Is Mo Yinjue's appearance pressuring you? Di Baichen glanced at Xiren indifferently and did not say anything. I don't know what's going on. This kid's cultivation actually increased so quickly. It's really shocking. His cultivation talent has always been very strong, not much different from yours. However, although your cultivation speed was suppressed by the cursed body, you didn't fall behind by much. Speaking of which, it's his cultivation speed that has suddenly increased. Xiren understood in his heart that Mo Yinjue's relationship with them was very friendly. However, no matter what, he still did not let go of his feelings for Bailey Hongzhuang. Although Beichen appeared to be extremely free and easy, men were still stingy in this kind of matter. It was not that simple to make him not care. If I'm not wrong, the reason why his cultivation can increase so quickly should be because he passed the trial of the heavenly slaughter tower. Trial? Ziren was slightly stunned and frowned. He had some doubts in his heart, but he quickly understood what Di Beichen was talking about. He could not help but open his eyes wide. Are you talking about the terrifying trial of the heavenly slaughter tower? Di Beichen nodded, that's right. Chapter 3779. Listening to Ziren's words, Di Beichen only glanced at him, but he closed his eyes and continued to cultivate. Looking at Di Beichen like this, Ziren thought for a moment and understood. Thinking about it, this was where Di Beichen's pressure came from. Mo Yinjue had always appeared to be very free and easy, but from his actions, it was likely that he was only acting free and easy. In fact, it was not easy for him to completely let go of this matter. He also had some sympathy for Mo Yinjue. Who would have thought that the always cold and ruthless young master of Shitian Tower was actually a romantic? On this day, Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation finally successfully broke through to the 7th level of the Purple Realm. At the same time, Di Beichen's cultivation also broke through to the 8th level of the Purple Realm. Her beautiful and refined face was filled with a happy smile. Bailey Hongzhuang felt a burst of joy in her heart. Beichen, you broke through again. Di Beichen smiled and nodded, his pair of narrow eyes curved into a charming arc. Wife, you also broke through. Sparring every day and using spirit stones to cultivate at night in this cultivation area, the progress is really extraordinary, much faster than usual. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes curved. The cultivation area's spirit energy was already very rich, and with the supply of spirit stones, the speed of cultivation was naturally faster than before. Now they also understood why the 5th level of the Purple Realm cultivators all ran to Penglai Island. If it was in the outside world, after a cultivator reached this level, the speed of cultivation would be extremely slow if they wanted to increase their cultivation. After all, they could only cultivate spirit energy from the air. Judging from the huge amount of spirit energy needed to break through to the Purple Realm, it would definitely take a long time. However, the spirit stones were very rich in spirit energy. Using spirit stones to cultivate was much faster than absorbing spirit energy from the air. If they stayed in the outside world, let alone the 7th level of the Purple Realm, they might not even be able to break through to the 4th level of the Purple Realm. We have accumulated a lot of killing intent. If there are no problems, we can go to the checkpoint area, Di Beichen said. In terms of strength, their strength was naturally not top-notch. However, the Demon Refining Tower's challenge area was similar to the Blood Refining Tower's challenge area. The difficulty of the challenge was related to the strength of the cultivator. The stronger the cultivator, the higher the difficulty of the challenge area. The weaker the cultivator, the lower the difficulty. In short, it was set according to the limit of each cultivator. Therefore, no matter when he went to challenge it, the effect was the same. The reason why they had been waiting was to accumulate enough killing intent before going. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and said, okay. They had spent a lot of time trying to pass the trial. Now, it was time to give it a try. After knowing that Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying had broken through, when Ziren and Shangguan Yingying rushed over, they sensed the two's aura and found that it had indeed increased compared to before. Di Beichen, Hongzhuang, congratulations on successfully breaking through. Shangguan Yingying congratulated with a smile. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly, I see that your aura has also increased. You should be close to breaking through, right? Shangguan Yingying nodded slightly, cultivating in the cultivation area, the cultivation speed is very fast. We are slightly slower than you, but we should be able to break through in a few days. That's good, Di Beichen smiled, Hongzhuang and I are going to the checkpoint area. You are going to the checkpoint now? Xiren asked in surprise. Chapter 3780. You're right. With this cultivation and killing intent, it should be enough. Xiren nodded. Beichen, Hongzhuang, you have to work hard and succeed. Shengguan Ying's eyes were filled with anticipation. If you succeed, then your cultivation will increase greatly. You too have already succeeded in obtaining the inheritance of the blood refining tower. I believe that the inheritance of the demon refining tower won't be a problem for you. Xiren's eyes were filled with determination. He believed that with Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang's level of excellence, they would definitely be able to obtain the inheritance of the demon refining tower. Mo Yinjue's cultivation talent had always been on par with Di Beichen's. Since Mo Yinjue could succeed, then presumably Di Beichen wouldn't fail either. Not long after, Ao Lingxiao and Mo Yinjue also came over. After knowing that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were preparing to attempt the trial, they were also very much in agreement. Beichen, Hongzhuang, everyone might encounter different situations when attempting the trial, but I feel that the most important thing is to advance courageously and fearlessly. Advance courageously and fearlessly. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows and muttered. Mo Yinjue nodded. That's right. This killing intent field gathers killing intent and cultivates a killing heart. If you stop because of fear, then I'm afraid it will be very difficult to succeed. I understand. Bailey Hongzhuang replied. Mo Yinjue's analysis was very reasonable. However, the specific situation would only be known after they entered the trial area. Beichen, you guys go ahead first. Ying and I will go into seclusion for a few days. After we break through, then we will attempt the trial. Okay. Di Beichen nodded. I'll go with Hongzhuang first. If I have any insights, I can share them with you. After making the decision, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen didn't delay any longer and went straight to the trial area. Compared to the arena area and the cultivation area, the number of cultivators in the challenge area was undoubtedly much lower. If it was a normal day, there would be very few cultivators who would come to the challenge area. However, ever since the news of Mo Yinjue obtaining the Devil Training Tower's inheritance spread, many cultivators became more confident and came to the challenge area to try their luck. If they were lucky, they might be able to obtain the inheritance, and from then on, they would be able to achieve a meteoric rise. Therefore, during that period of time, the trial area was bustling with noise. Many cultivators gathered here, all of them thinking that they were extraordinary and only felt that they were the next genius to succeed. However, after such a long time, there was still no other cultivator who had obtained the inheritance. Only then did everyone truly believe that Mo Yinjue was able to obtain the Devil Training Tower's inheritance because of his own outstanding talent and not because of good luck. Right now, the number of cultivators in the trial area is a lot less. Bailey Hongzhuang looked around, the corners of her lips hooked up in a smile. Di Beichen nodded. If it was still as grand as before, I'm afraid that we would have to queue up here. Huh, that's true. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Unknowingly, we have stayed in the Devil Training Tower for another 2 months. If we succeed, we can return to Penglai Island. Standing in front of the challenge room, Di Beichen stared at Bailey Hongzhuang and said, "Wife, do your best." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded her head, her eyes filled with confidence. Okay. Chapter 3781. In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen walked into the challenge area together. When the surrounding cultivators saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and Lu Zilong had also started to challenge the challenge area, their eyes flashed with a strange light. After the black-clothed man started to challenge the challenge area, Bailey Hongzhuang and Lu Zilong also started to challenge the challenge area. Their performance in the challenge area was not any worse than the black-clothed man's. Do you think they will also succeed in obtaining the inheritance? What kind of joke is this? Do you think the inheritance is so easy to obtain? The black-clothed man was already lucky to be able to obtain the inheritance. If the two of them can also obtain it, unless they have a way to challenge the challenge area, it's impossible. That's true. In the past 100 years, only the black-clothed man has succeeded in the demon training tower. This is already very impressive. It's impossible for anyone else to succeed. Everyone shook their heads. They only felt that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were simply indulging in fantasy. It was already impossible for them to succeed. Just wait. When they come out after failing the challenge area, their faces will definitely be covered in dirt. As the door closed, Bailey Hongzhuang finally saw the scene in the challenge area. She saw that she was in an empty room. The dim light made everything around her a little blurry. It was clearly daytime, but it looked as if it was night. Bailey Hongzhuang vigilantly observed everything around her. She did not dare to relax in the slightest. She knew how terrifying the challenge area was. Perhaps when she relaxed, the attack would quietly come and you would not be able to defend against it. However, Bailey Hongzhuang carefully walked around the entire room and did not find anything. She could not help but frown. Her eyes flashed with an incomprehensible light. What's going on? Why is there nothing in here? Bailey Hongzhuang's heart was filled with doubts. Since there was nothing, what kind of test was this? Could it be that she had to stay in this empty room forever? Xiao He, Xiao Bai, and Bai Shi were all paying attention to Bailey Hongzhuang's actions. However, as soon as they walked through the door, they realized that a powerful force had imprisoned them, causing them to be unable to communicate with Bailey Hongzhuang at all. The Chaos Ring was a divine weapon. Up until now, the various functions it had displayed had amazed them. However, it had been restrained here. How could they not be surprised? This demon training tower is indeed an extraordinary place. We can't communicate with Master. Xiao Hei's eyes flashed with a look of disbelief. Her voice was full of lamentation. From what I can see, there's something strange about this challenge area. Not only is it narrow, it's also very dim. The strangest thing is that Master has been sitting on the same spot without moving since she entered. Fortunately, no one attacked Master. Otherwise, the situation would be terrible, Bai Shi slowly said. Xiao Bai's gaze fell upon Bailey Hongzhuang. Gradually, it could not help but frown. Look, Master has been frowning. There's also a look of confusion on her face. Why is that? Hearing Xiao Bai's words, Xiao He and Bai Shi immediately paid close attention. With one look, they realized that the situation was a little strange. I don't know. Could it be that this test is not about martial strength, but the mind? Bai Shi suddenly asked. Chapter 3782. Bailey Hongzhuang walked around the room a few times and shouted for a while. However, there was still no response. She could not help but frown. This seemed to be an empty room. If she was not so sure that she had walked into the challenge room, she would have suspected that she had walked into the wrong room and arrived at an empty room. Since she could not figure out what the test was, Bailey Hongzhuang was not in a hurry. She simply sat on the ground and wanted to see what the test was about. She believed that there must be a reason why the test was set up this way. She just had to wait quietly and she would find out sooner or later. After all, in the process of the test, once she left, she would fail the test. Hence, she had no way out. Time passed quietly as she waited. When Bailey Hongzhuang saw that there was no movement, she simply closed her eyes and began to cultivate. However, in the process of cultivation, she was still vigilant of her surroundings. As long as there was an attack, she would be the first to react. However, as time passed, there was not the slightest bit of an attack. This place was like an empty room with no special meaning. Regarding this, Bailey Hongzhuang felt very helpless. She was completely unaware of the test's routine. According to what Mo Yunjue had told her, the content of this test was completely different from hers. It is indeed a mysterious challenge room. This is the reason why so few people have been able to obtain the inheritance for so many years. Because every cultivator encounters different situations. If the content of the test is the same, then everyone can think of a way to overcome it based on the content of the test. Then, the number of successful cultivators will increase greatly. I'm afraid that all the heirs of the major forces will be able to obtain it. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head and sighed, since I can't figure out the routine, I can only wait here. I'll cultivate well first. I don't believe that this test will keep me here forever. Day after day passed. Bailey Hongzhuang had been meditating in seclusion on the spot, absorbing the elemental energy in the air. She was pleasantly surprised to find that the elemental energy in the trial area was very rich. She had been using spirit stones to cultivate, and the rich elemental energy in the air had the same effect as if she was cultivating in the cultivation area. Her own cultivation was also gradually increasing through this cultivation process. In the beginning, Bailey Hongzhuang was still able to endure and cultivate here day after day. However, as time passed, she could not help but feel anxious. I'm afraid I've already been here for several months, but there hasn't been any movement. Could it be that I have to stay here forever? Although the essence energy here is very dense and very suitable for my cultivation, I still have many things to do. I can't always stay here, not to mention that Beichen and the rest are still waiting for me. Bailey Hongzhuang's beautiful face couldn't help but be filled with anxiety. She exited her cultivation state, stood up, and shouted into the room, if there's any assessment, just start it. What's the meaning of trapping me here? However, there was still no sound coming from the empty room. It was as if there was only Bailey Hongzhuang here. Bailey Hongzhuang shouted for a while, but after realizing that there was no use, the helplessness in her heart grew stronger. Chapter 3783. What kind of test is this? Bailey Hongzhuang sighed. In the end, she helplessly sat down and continued to cultivate. She didn't know how much time had passed since she started cultivating. In the beginning, Bailey Hongzhuang was counting the number of days she had spent in this room. Later on, she couldn't even tell how long she had been in this room, so she simply stopped caring. During this period of time, she had thought of giving up and walking out of this room. However, every time she was about to open the door, she would fall into hesitation. She didn't want to admit defeat like this. She could fail, but she didn't want to fail so muddle-headedly. Until now, she still didn't know what she was doing here. She also didn't know where she had failed, so she didn't want to leave. Thus, she finally returned to her original spot. The only thing that was worth being happy about was that Bailey Hongzhuang felt that her demonic calling scripture had signs of evolution, but that was just the beginning of the evolution. As she cultivated wholeheartedly during this time, the speed of the demonic calling scripture's evolution was greatly accelerated. She could feel that after the demon summoning scripture had evolved, her cultivation speed had increased by a few notches. It seemed like it had only increased by a few notches, but it was enough to make Bailey Hongzhuang feel unusually happy. At this late stage of cultivation, it would take a long time to improve. Even if it was only a few notches faster, it would save a lot of time. Beichen had the heavenly mandate constitution, so it was much easier for him to cultivate. His cultivation speed was also greatly increased. In the long run, her cultivation would definitely not be able to keep up with Beichen's pace. However, the improvement of the demon summoning scripture had undoubtedly given her a chance to keep up with Beichen. When I first started cultivating the demon summoning scripture, I already knew how powerful it was. In the entire Xingxian continent, there are probably no more than 5 techniques that can be called heaven-defying. Before, I only felt that the cultivation speed was very fast, but I didn't think that it was too powerful. I just didn't think that the demon summoning scripture could evolve. It's really amazing. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed in her heart. As the head of the Bailey family in her previous life, she had seen all sorts of good things. However, this was the first time she had encountered a skill that could evolve. This technique is called the Demon Summoning Scripture. With such a strange name, it should be used for summoning. But what does this demon refer to? I've been cultivating it for so long, but I still haven't discovered its specific use. Bailey Hongzhuang had always had some doubts about this. She had thought about this point before, but after studying it for a long time, she still couldn't understand the reason why this cultivation method was named this way. She didn't know if she would be able to understand it after this cultivation method evolved. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang sighed faintly. I don't know how long this weird assessment will keep me here. Compared to Bailey Hongzhuang's helplessness, the three beasties were also confused. Master is usually very calm. Why has she been mumbling to herself ever since she entered this room? Xiao He raised her eyebrows, her eyes filled with confusion. It had been with its master for so long, so it understood her personality very well. Generally speaking, its master's personality was more stable and wouldn't be so impatient. Chapter 3784. Xiao Bai nodded. My thoughts are the same as yours. Judging from Master's behavior, she seems to think that she has been in this room for a very long time. A test of endurance? Xiao He frowned. Then this test isn't that dangerous. Although this test isn't dangerous, it's very torturous. Bai Shi's expression was not optimistic. Most importantly, we don't know how long this test will take. A long wait was something that most people could not accept. Furthermore, Bailey Hongzhuang had no idea what she was doing ever since she had entered this place. It was not easy for her to wait patiently. It was not just Bailey Hongzhuang. Bai Shi believed that most cultivators would not be able to hold themselves back. I finally understand why there are so few inheritors of the Demon Training Tower. This test is just too perverse. I'm afraid that many cultivators would not be able to take this first test and would just walk out of the room. Everyone had come here to challenge this test for the sake of increasing their cultivation so that they could live a more carefree life in the future. No one would want to spend all their time in this empty room. This point alone was enough to cause most cultivators to fail. Then what should we do? Xiao He finally understood the difficulty of this test. We can't even warn Master. We can only watch from here. Xiao Bai shrugged. There's no other way. We can only hope that Master understands this herself. However, Master is now in an illusion. It's just too difficult for her to understand this. The three beasts shook their heads and sighed. They felt that this test was just too perverse. Those involved could not see clearly while those on the sidelines could not see clearly. It was just too difficult for those involved to see clearly. Bailey Hongzhuang spent her days in cultivation. Gradually, she did not pay much attention to the passage of time. Since she was here, she would take things as they came. She could not remember how long she had been here. She only felt that she had been here for a very long time. She focused all her attention on her cultivation. During this process, her demon summoning scripture had successfully evolved. After the complete evolution of the demon summoning scripture, the speed of cultivation had greatly increased. Bailey Hongzhuang's strength was also steadily increasing in the process of cultivation. Now that she had completely calmed down, she was less anxious. She was no longer in a hurry to leave, nor was she in a hurry to improve her cultivation. When everything calmed down, she felt completely different from before. Sometimes, it was a good thing to stop for a while. Perhaps there was no need to be so impatient. Ever since she found out her true identity in Feng Bo country, she had always felt an indescribable sense of urgency. She did her best to raise her cultivation, not daring to relax even a little bit, so that she could save her parents as soon as possible. This was because if she was just a step late, her parents might be in an uncontrollable danger. Therefore, she had to make every second count and not slack off. During this process, she was also exhausted, but she had never said it out loud. Originally, after saving her parents and punishing the Yu clan, she could finally relax. However, Di Baichen's cursed body made her unable to relax even a little bit. They did their best to raise their cultivation in order to successfully enter Penglai Island. Otherwise, Di Baichen's life would be in danger. Chapter 3785. In life, sometimes it's not a bad thing to slow down a little. I've indeed been too impatient. The urgent need to improve over a long period of time had caused Bailey Hongzhuang to be extremely impatient. Although she did not usually show it, it had always been there. If this mentality had always existed, perhaps there would not be any problems in the short term. However, after a long time, this problem would become apparent. Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but feel lucky. Lucky that she had discovered this malignant tumor in the process of the assessment. As long as she could solve it now, everything would still be in time. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but smile from the bottom of her heart. However, just as Bailey Hongzhuang smiled, the dim environment in front of her eyes suddenly brightened. In another part of the room, a door quietly opened. Noticing this change, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes could not help but flash with a thick sense of astonishment. She knew very well that the opening of that door meant that she had passed the first stage. So this is my first stage of the assessment. It had already started from the moment I walked into this room. Yet, I never knew. Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but sigh. Her eyes were filled with amazement. This level of assessment was truly beyond her expectations. However, it had helped her a lot. Compared to the Blood Refining Tower's assessment, the Demon Refining Tower's assessment was undoubtedly a level higher. It seems that the Demon Refining Tower's assessment is based on one's heart. Bailey Hongzhuang thought to herself. It was precisely because the assessment was based on one's heart that the way it was conducted was even more unpredictable. If she had not gone through this assessment, she probably would not have known when she would have discovered the existence of this problem. It was truly amazing. This assessment had undoubtedly helped her to solve a hidden danger. It was extremely helpful to her. It seemed that as long as she passed the Demon Refining Tower, regardless of whether she succeeded or not, it would be of great help to a cultivator. Looking at the open door in front of her, Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze gradually became determined. She must persevere. In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang directly walked through the open door and began the next stage of the assessment. However, when Bailey Hongzhuang entered the room, the scene before her eyes suddenly changed. In her line of sight, it was a blood-red world, surrounded by countless cultivators. These cultivators were looking at her like wolves, tigers, and leopards. Their ferocious gazes were as if they wanted to tear her into pieces. Noticing this scene, Bailey Hongzhuang's expression suddenly became vigilant. Compared to the scene of the first test, this test seemed to be much more terrifying. The second test is very simple. At this moment, a voice suddenly entered Bailey Hongzhuang's ears. She couldn't help but raise her head and look around. She wanted to know where the sound was coming from, but it seemed to be everywhere. She couldn't tell where it was coming from. Kill everyone here and you'll pass. After hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but be stunned. Her eyes flashed with deep astonishment. As far as the eye could see, there were simply too many cultivators around her. How difficult would it be for her to kill all of them? However, this voice clearly had no intention of discussing with her. This was the content of the assessment. If she couldn't complete it, she would fail. Chapter 3786. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was hesitating, the surrounding cultivators had already swarmed towards her like a swarm of bees. Bailey Hongzhuang could see cruelty and excitement in those blood-red eyes. Obviously, if she did not kill these people in front of her, she would be the one to die. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but feel helpless. However, since this was the only way, she could only resolutely walk down this path. In the next moment, the colored glazed sword appeared in her hand. The elemental energy in her body surged out violently. Bailey Hongzhuang did not hesitate to meet the cultivators who were attacking her. The sound of weapons clashing quickly rang out. Bailey Hongzhuang executed the shifting forms technique to dodge the crowd's attacks as she shuttled back and forth between the crowd, harvesting their lives. This was an extremely bloody scene, filled with cruelty and heartlessness. Bailey Hongzhuang was not a heartless person. The cultivators who had died by her hands all had their reasons. The scene before her eyes was clearly different from what she had thought in the past. Unfortunately, she did not have a choice. Furthermore, these cultivators looked at her as if they were jackals and wolves who had finally seen food after being starved for a long time. Their eyes were filled with a faint thirst for food. It was disgusting and terrifying. Bailey Hongzhuang continued to fight. She unleashed her martial arts techniques one after another, severely injuring the surrounding cultivators. Fortunately, although there were many cultivators, their combat power did not surpass hers by much. Hence, she was able to persevere. Even so, Bailey Hongzhuang was not optimistic. Because she was alone, her elemental energy would eventually dry up. Once her elemental energy was depleted, the person who would be in danger would be her. Hence, she had to reduce the consumption of her elemental energy while harvesting the lives of these cultivators. Time gradually passed. The number of cultivators who had fallen under Bailey Hongzhuang's sword gradually increased. Bailey Hongzhuang continuously consumed elixirs to replenish her elemental energy. She was thankful that she had brought quite a number of elixirs with her. Otherwise, she would have been exhausted to death here. Fatigue slowly crept in and Bailey Hongzhuang's sword-wielding hands slowed down. With a slight carelessness, the number of wounds on her body had increased. The pain constantly stimulated her nerves. Unknowingly, her eyes had been stained with blood and were filled with viciousness and heartlessness. Her white robes had been stained red with blood. She could not tell if it was her own blood or someone else's. In the process of this battle, the murderous aura that Bailey Hongzhuang had gradually gathered around her body. This murderous aura was much more intense than the aura that she had accumulated in the arena area. The murderous aura in the arena area was a very mysterious power to her. It filled her body and could increase her strength, but the murderous aura in front of her was a murderous aura that came from her heart. At this moment, her eyes were completely bloodshot. Everyone in front of her was her enemy. What she wanted to do was to use her own hands to slaughter everything in front of her. This situation was completely out of her control. Once she stopped moving, she would be killed by these people. Under such circumstances, Bailey Hongzhuang did not know how long she had been fighting. She only felt that the strength in her body was drained and her vision seemed to be blurred. However, the pain from her body stimulated her nerves, making her force herself to continue fighting. This was a bitter battle. A battle that was more miserable than being besieged by a group of cultivators in the outer hall of Penglai. Chapter 3787. When Bailey Hongzhuang exhausted all her strength to fight, Di Beichen was also in the same situation. The flowing light sword in his hand was emitting a cold light. Bright red blood had already dyed the blade red. Looking at it, it was a shocking red. However, in this blood red, Di Beichen's deep eyes became even darker. That kind of darkness seemed to be hiding a power that could devour everything. The long sword was brandished, contrasting with that impeccable godlike face, revealing a bit of bloodthirst and charm. Di Beichen wrinkled his good-looking eyebrows. He had no scruples about these cultivators in front of him. Since he was allowed to kill all of them, then he would kill all of the obstacles. However, he was a little worried. If Bailey Hongzhuang's challenge was also like this, he didn't know if Hongzhuang could persevere. Normally, they would often engage in high-intensity battles. However, the battle in front of them was more cruel and desperate than any of the battles they had participated in before. In the past, he had always been by Hongzhuang's side. However, this time, only Hongzhuang was challenging the challenge. He was really a little worried. The inheritance of the Mo training pagoda was more difficult than the inheritance of the blood chi pagoda, but after understanding the content of the assessment of the Mo training pagoda, Di Beichen also understood why Mo Yunjue could not obtain the inheritance of the blood chi field, but could obtain the inheritance of the murderous chi field. This was because the Shitian Tower was a dark and cruel place. As the young master of the Shitian Tower, Mo Yunjue was certainly not unfamiliar with all of this. On the contrary, Mo Yunjue should be very suitable for this kind of environment. The trials he had passed before were very likely to be the same as the situation in front of him. It was precisely because of this that Mo Yunjue was able to smoothly obtain the inheritance. This was where his advantage lay. If it was an ordinary cultivator, just looking at the scene of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood in front of them, they would probably not be able to accept it. After all, everyone's hands were more or less stained with blood. However, such a huge amount of blood was something they had never experienced before. Di Beichen also felt uncomfortable about the situation in front of him, but he didn't feel guilty. If his judgment was right, everything in front of him was probably an illusion. The characteristic of the killing aura was the killing aura. Presumably, this test was to let them adapt to such an environment. If they didn't have such killing aura, they probably wouldn't be able to condense such a terrifying killing aura. "Wife, do your best," Di Beichen murmured. In the next moment, a fierce light suddenly bloomed in his eyes, and then he attacked the crowd without hesitation. Bailey Hongzhuang did not know how long she had been fighting. She only knew that she had to persevere. She could not die here. She wanted to obtain the inheritance of the killing aura. She still had many things to do. A pair of beautiful eyes were suffused with a blood-red light. That beautiful figure had now turned into a blood-red figure. The rich smell of blood covered her nose. The smell was almost nauseating. Finally, after the last cultivator fell, Bailey Hongzhuang could no longer persevere and fell into a coma. When Bailey Hongzhuang woke up again, in front of her was a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. She looked at her hands and clothes that were stained with blood. Her long, shapely eyebrows unconsciously wrinkled. Her beautiful face was quietly covered with a touch of indifference. Chapter 3788. Bailey Hongzhuang thought that after experiencing that battle, she would be able to pass this hurdle. However, when she opened her eyes and realized that she was still in her previous environment, she understood that this stage was not over yet. After recovering her essence energy, she slowly followed the bloody path in front of her and walked forward. Gradually, a few figures appeared in front of her again. After seeing this scene, she understood that if she wanted to pass this stage, she must kill her way out. Otherwise, it would be considered a failure. Her pitch-black eyes suddenly emitted a sharp and cold light. "Since that's the case, I'll kill my way out." Her cold voice was filled with unparalleled dominance and ruthlessness. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was extremely cold. The colored glazed sword in her hand emitted a cold light. She moved her shape-shifting shadow and shuttled through the crowd. As she raised her hand and swung her sword, she displayed all her martial skills. Every move was ruthless and she aimed to kill with one blow. This battle not only tested Bailey Hongzhuang's primary energy in combat skills, but it also tested her heart. In such a long battle, if she could not stay true to her heart, it was very likely that she would fall into the devil's path and become a murderous demon. This was not what Bailey Hongzhuang wanted. Therefore, in the process of this battle, she had always tried her best to stay true to her heart. She could not be affected like this. At this point, Bailey Hongzhuang firmly believed that her judgment was not wrong. Thinking back to when she was in the blood refining tower, she found that although the blood ground abyss was a very evil place, the blood energy in the blood aura field did not contain any blood energy. On the contrary, it was a kind of pure blood energy without any impurities. All the cultivators in the blood aura tower believed that in order to obtain the inheritance of the blood aura tower, one must be strong enough and kill enough cultivators to gather the blood energy. However, this was not the case in reality. Similarly, if one could obtain the inheritance of the killing aura field by killing, then the number of inheritors would not be so small. This kind of murderous aura should also be pure without any impurities or evil thoughts. Just like how the murderous aura of a murderer was completely different from the murderous aura of an avenger, murderous aura was also different from murderous aura. If she treated everything in front of her as a massacre, then she would have failed this round. If she wanted to succeed, she had to stay true to herself and defeat these cultivators one by one. The inheritor of the murderous aura had to rely on his own strength to carve out a bloody path. Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't a stupid person. As soon as she passed the first trial, she understood that the Devil Training Pagoda's trials were actually an illusion. This kind of illusion existed in their hearts. Through this illusion, they could find the source of their own problems. Only by overcoming one's weakness could one become stronger. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a faint smile. She couldn't help but feel enlightened in her heart. Her moves also became smoother and more natural. In the trial area. After Bailey Hongzhuang entered the trial area, some cultivators heard the news and came over one after another. During this period of time, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had been in the limelight in the Devil Training Tower. Everyone paid close attention to them. Chapter 3789. Most of the cultivators thought that they would come out in less than 4 hours if they failed the first test. However, what happened next was beyond the expectations of most cultivators. They've been in there for an entire day and they haven't come out yet. Don't tell me they've passed the first test. According to what I know, each test takes a day. If one can stay in there for 3 days, they'll be able to receive the inheritance of the murderous aura. Mo Yinjue stayed in there for 3 days. However, most of the cultivators came out not long after they went in. It's already amazing if they can stay in there for a few hours. They've been in there for more than a day. Don't tell me they've really received the inheritance of the murderous aura. One of the cultivators couldn't help but exclaim. If Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying had also received the inheritance, it would be shocking news. However, the cultivator's thought was quickly refuted by the others. Impossible, impossible. It's not that easy to receive the inheritance of the murderous aura. They're just lucky to have stayed in there until now. Xiren and Shangguan Yingying were originally in closed-door cultivation. They only wanted to break through before going to the test. However, as the test area became more and more lively, they couldn't help but go to the test area to check out the situation. Mo Yinjue, is what they said true? Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but look at Mo Yinjue. They'll succeed if they stay in there for 3 days. Hearing this, Mo Yinjue pondered for a moment. His expression was somewhat complicated as he said, I'm not very clear about this matter either, but I did stay inside for 3 days when I tried to break through the trial. There are a total of 3 tests. As long as they pass all 3 tests, they'll be able to receive the inheritance. Xiren's eyes lit up. If that's the case, it might really be like what everyone said. Indeed. Mo Yinjue nodded. It seems that Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying have reached the second test. It's very likely that they'll succeed. Ao Lingxiao's eyes shone with surprise. He had personally passed through the test area and knew very well how difficult it was. Ever since he knew that Mo Yinjue had passed the test, he was very surprised. However, he didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen to have a chance of passing the test as well. Back then, he had only been in there for a few hours before he had no choice but to leave. At that time, he only felt that this assessment was too abnormal, and that it would be extremely difficult to pass it. However, Mo Yinjue and the others in front of him made him understand that this difficulty was just his own feeling. He couldn't do it, but someone else could. Thinking of this, Ao Ling Zhao's eyes couldn't help but change a little. If Di Beichen could really obtain the inheritance, perhaps he could believe that his judgment was not wrong. With Di Beichen's strength, even if his judgment was wrong, it wouldn't matter too much. Bailey Hongzhuang swung the sword in her hand. After a few days of fighting, she was shocked to find that her opponents were getting stronger and stronger. Fighting against these powerhouses, she felt more and more pressure. It became more and more difficult for her to move forward. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's confidence wasn't affected at all. Instead, it became even more determined. Chapter 3790. Bailey Hongzhuang's advancing speed slowed down, and in the process of fighting, Bailey Hongzhuang discovered that there was actually an opportunity to cultivate here. Once the Yuanli in her body was exhausted, she could retreat to a place that she had cleared before, and there, her opponents would not take the initiative to provoke her. In this way, her threat was reduced by a bit. However, everything here was too special, and she could only rest after fighting to her limit. Regarding this, Bailey Hongzhuang was both helpless and happy. Helpless because every battle was incomparably painful, and happy because in this process, her strength was increasing at a very fast rate. Compared to fighting in the outside world, fighting with all her strength like this was undoubtedly the best way to increase her strength. If it wasn't for the fact that she was wasting so much time here, cultivating here could also be considered an excellent method. Until now, she had no idea how long she had been in this place, and did not know if everyone had been waiting for her outside. Of course, this thought only appeared for a short moment, and was then suppressed by Bailey Hongzhuang. Since she had already reached this step, then there was no possibility of her giving up. She believed that it wouldn't be long before she would be able to pass the second stage. In this endless process of killing, Bailey Hongzhuang gradually understood what Mo Yinjue meant by advancing courageously and fearlessly. Without this courageously and fearlessly belief, it was absolutely impossible to rely on one's own strength to carve out a bloody path. In this process, Bailey Hongzhuang was shocked to discover that there was no fear in her heart, as if nothing could hurt her anymore. Fear was an emotion that existed in everyone's heart. No matter how strong a person was, there was only something in their heart that they were afraid of. However, in this process of getting stronger and stronger, Bailey Hongzhuang discovered that the feeling of fear was gradually shrinking. After discovering this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but be shocked. This was simply too shocking. She had never thought that this method could actually suppress fear. The demon training tower is truly magical. Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but sigh. This was the power of the demon training tower, and at the same time, this was also the reason why it was so difficult for everyone to pass the stage. It was because it was simply too difficult to overcome this, but once it was overcome, then one would truly have the heart of a powerhouse. No wonder since ancient times, all the cultivators who obtained the inheritance were famous figures. To have such a heart of a powerhouse, it would not be easy to not make a name for oneself. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head and sighed. I just don't know how long it will take to break out of this bloody path. Bailey Hongzhuang gazed behind her. The path behind her, the path she had killed so many people Hongzhuang, and the shocking red around her was now no longer make her feel uncomfortable. Forget it, she thought, she of Bailey Hongzhuang's, as long as she had a heart, I will definitely defeat all those people in front of me. Bailey Hongzhuang's pitch-black eyes flashed with a determined light. Her figure flashed, and she once again rushed into the crowd. Compared to the long wait that Bailey Hongzhuang felt, the cultivators outside of the challenge area had a completely different feeling. Chapter 3791. I never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen would be so powerful. They've been in there for such a long time and still haven't come out. If they've passed the second stage, then only the third stage is left. Once they pass the third stage, they'll be able to obtain the inheritance. Why did I feel that the third stage was particularly difficult when I went in? Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang and Yi Zichen's trial was relatively easy? That's possible. Maybe the demon training tower saw that they were good-looking and lowered the difficulty of the trial. Following this person's words, everyone couldn't help but chuckle. It was clearly a joke, but everyone actually believed it. This was because Bailey Hongzhuang and Yi Zichen's performance had clearly exceeded their expectations. They simply couldn't believe it. In comparison, this reason was much easier for them to accept. Almost everyone didn't want anyone else to obtain the inheritance. This only proved that they were far from Bailey Hongzhuang and Yi Zichen's level. However, Xiren and the others' emotions were the complete opposite. In my opinion, since Di Beichen and Yi Zichen are already halfway through the second stage, they'll definitely succeed. Xiren couldn't hide the excitement in his eyes. He had always thought that Bailey Hongzhuang and Yi Zichen's strength would definitely succeed. Now, it seemed that the possibility of success was very high. Mo Yinjue smiled and nodded. I also believe that they'll definitely succeed. Xiren, Hongzhuang and Yi Zichen are still trying to pass the stage. I can't bear to cultivate, so I'll just stay outside. I'll be able to know the results as soon as possible. As for wasting a few days, that's nothing. All right. Xiren rubbed Shengguan Yingying's hair dotingly. In fact, his mentality was exactly the same as Shengguan Yingying's. Di Beichen continued to move forward. One corpse after another formed a path under his feet. A path of blood. This was truly a path of blood. Di Beichen sighed in his heart. No wonder the cultivators in the demon training tower fought so cruelly. This was the characteristic of the demon training abyss. Becoming a murderous demon, killing anyone who stood in his way. If Buddha stood in his way, he would kill Buddha. This was truly a terrifying and domineering state. If one's willpower was not strong enough, they would probably be tortured to insanity by such days. In the process of killing, Di Beichen found that his cultivation was growing at an astonishing speed. His combat strength was also increasing rapidly. If this continues, I'm sure my cultivation will have improved by the time I'm done with this trial. However, as time passed, whether it was Bailey Hongzhuang or Di Beichen, there was a feeling of loneliness in their hearts. Everyone was his enemy, and the only one he could trust was himself. If they wanted to live, they had to kill all their opponents. As a result, the feeling of loneliness continued to spread in his heart. Bailey Hongzhuang did not know how many days she had spent in this endless slaughter. Day after day had made her feel numb. She did not know how many days had passed since she had participated in the trial. She remembered that Mo Yinjue had only participated in the trial for a short period of time. She never thought that she would need such a long time to complete the trial. In front of her, she was only 100 meters away from completing the trial. Thinking of this, a bright light shone in her eyes. After fighting for so long, she was finally going to complete the trial. Chapter 3792. Ding! After Bailey Hongzhuang had killed the last cultivator, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with a deep sigh. The colored glass sword pierced the ground, emitting a sharp sound. At the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang also sat on the ground, her body paralyzed. Looking at the bloody scene in the distance, her mood was complicated. It was lonely at the top, perhaps this was how it felt. The long period of killing and loneliness made her feel an indescribable sadness and desolation. It was clearly just a test, but it inexplicably made her feel an indescribable sadness. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was sighing, she suddenly realized that the scene in front of her had changed. A green figure appeared in her line of sight. Looking at this figure, Bailey Hongzhuang felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. As she gradually approached, she recognized the owner of the figure. Han Xiling. Bailey Hongzhuang cried out in astonishment. Staring blankly at the figure in front of her, she could only wonder if she had seen wrongly. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the green figure quickly turned around, revealing a face that Bailey Hongzhuang could not be more familiar with. Bailey Hongzhuang, long time no see. Han Xiling's lips curled into a cold smile. Did you think that I was already dead? Are you not dead? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes narrowed. She clearly believed that Han Xiling was already dead. Although she did not manage to find Han Xiling's body, she firmly believed that under such circumstances, Han Xiling could not possibly still be alive. However, this figure in front of her. Could it really be because her uncle, Han Xiling, was not dead? Hee hee. Han Xiling laughed coldly. I won't die so easily. Then why haven't you shown up for so long? I was severely injured by you. Fortunately, I survived. I've been recuperating for the past few years. Now that I've finally recovered, my cultivation base has also improved greatly. Han Xiling glanced coldly at Bailey Hongzhuang. I know you're married to Beichen, but so what? In the end, he will still be mine. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. Even if you're still alive, it means nothing to us. No. Han Xiling's eyes were filled with contempt. Didn't you kill me because you were afraid that I would marry Beichen? You clearly know that the entire Tiangang sect is in favor of my marriage with Beichen. If you didn't appear, Beichen and I would have already gotten married. I don't know how your relationship was in the past, and I don't care. However, everything is a foregone conclusion now. If you don't want to die, you'd better leave on your own. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was slightly cold. She had always hated Han Xiling. This woman was vicious. From the moment they met, this woman had been causing trouble for her everywhere. She even tried to secretly kill her. If she had not been careful, she would have died in Han Xiling's hands. However, Han Xiling's reappearance still caused a ripple in her heart. This woman's reappearance was not a good thing after all. I'll leave. Han Xiling chuckled. Why should I leave? You're the one who came between Beichen and me. The person who should leave should be you. Chapter 3793. So what? Han Xiling's lips curled into a sneer. Actually, I've always had a place in Beichen's heart, it's just that you didn't know about it. You have to know that when Beichen was being oppressed by the sect, it was me who had been silently helping him. He will always remember me. You tried to kill me, do you think Beichen doesn't care at all? Han Xiling's words hit Bailey Hongzhuang's heart hard. This was what she was most worried about after killing Han Xiling. She believed that Beichen didn't like Han Xiling, but no matter what, Han Xiling had done Beichen a favor. It was precisely because of this that Beichen would tolerate her a lot, but in the end, Han Xiling still died in her hands. Although Beichen said that this matter wasn't her fault, she believed that Beichen must have cared about this matter. No matter how hateful Han Xiling was, she was still Beichen's sister. Aren't you still alive now? Bailey Hongzhuang said coldly. Hearing this, Han Xiling chuckled. Yes, I'm not dead, so I'm going to snatch Beichen from your hands. Impossible, stop dreaming. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Han Xiling indifferently. She believed in Beichen's feelings for her. Han Xiling didn't succeed in the first place, and now it was even more impossible. Bailey Hongzhuang, I think you don't seem to understand men. For men, what they can't get is the best. Once they get it, the feeling is completely different. Back then, didn't Beichen take a fancy to you because he was with me all the time? Now that our situation has been reversed, it's time to rewrite the result. Hearing Han Shiling's words, Bailey Hongzhuang's expression didn't change. Don't talk nonsense, everything is not as you think. She and Di Beichen had been together for so long, and Beichen's sincerity towards her could be seen by the sun and moon. She had never doubted this point. Oh. You're really that confident? Of course. Since that's the case, why don't we make a bet? Han Shiling looked at Bailey Hongzhuang coldly, his eyes were filled with confidence. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes narrowed. How do you want to bet? It's very simple, you'll hide in my house. I'll talk to Beichen's. If he doesn't have me, then I'll leave and never disturb you two's life. On the contrary, if he does have a place for me, then you're not allowed to appear in front of Beichen in the future. This bet is completely meaningless. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was filled with disdain. You'll definitely lose this round. Bailey Hongzhuang, it's too early for you to say that. If you're overconfident, the result will be very embarrassing for you. How about it? Do you dare to make a bet with me? If you don't have the guts, then you might as well just leave. Han Shiling's face was filled with provocation, as if he had a card up his sleeve and was certain that Bailey Hongzhuang wouldn't dare to agree. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately said coldly, since you insist, I'll make a bet with you. However, if you lose, you'll have to disappear completely in the future. No problem. Han Shiling nodded without hesitation. Beichen will be very happy to see me. You'll definitely lose. You're thinking too much, Bailey Hongzhuang said coldly. Chapter 3794. Hearing the familiar footsteps, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately realized that this person was Di Beichen. The next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang quickly hid in the room. As soon as she hid, Di Beichen opened the door. However, when Di Beichen saw Han Shiling in the room, his face could not help but be filled with a deep astonishment. Shiling, you're still alive. Didn't you die in the assessment? Han Shiling stared at Di Beichen affectionately, her eyes full of longing. She did not answer Di Beichen's words, and she hugged Di Beichen. Beichen, I thought I would never see you again in my life. Fortunately, I survived, so I have the opportunity to come back and see you. Han Shiling's eyes were misty. It's great to see you again, I miss you so much. Bailey Hongzhuang behind the screen could not help but frown after seeing this scene. Han Shiling was too active, and this scene of hugging was really a bit of an eyesore in her eyes. Di Beichen slowly stepped back, making Han Shiling leave his arms, and then he said, I thought you had fallen, I didn't expect you to still be alive. After seeing Di Beichen's move, Bailey Hongzhuang showed a satisfied look. Han Shiling looked at Di Beichen with tears in her eyes. Aren't you happy to see that I'm still alive? No. Di Beichen shook his head. I'm relieved to know that you're still alive. Beichen, Bailey Hongzhuang was too ruthless. She wanted to take my life as soon as she made a move, and she also colluded with Xia Jiqing to kill me. If it weren't for my good fortune, it would be impossible for me to appear in front of you now. Shiling, if you didn't force her step by step, Hongzhuang wouldn't do this. Di Beichen sighed, and there was a bit of helplessness in his expression. However, Han Shiling took Di Beichen's hand and said, it's not like this at all. Beichen, it's Bailey Hongzhuang who spread rumors in front of you. She thought I was dead, so she began to talk nonsense. She planned to take my life because she cared about the relationship between you and me, so she wanted to kill me forever. No matter what, I'm your sister, don't you think she's too much? Hearing this, Di Beichen didn't speak. He just looked at Han Shiling with complicated eyes, but he didn't speak. Seeing this, Han Shilin was obviously not reconciled. She immediately shook Di Beichen's arm. Beichen, do you not believe me? I'm telling the truth. I went through a lot of hardships to come back. Do you think that I'm lying? Han Shilin couldn't help but sob. I know, you think I'm unreasonable, but I really didn't lie about this. Looking at Han Shilin like this, Di Beichen couldn't help but say, Shilin, I don't believe you. So, you believe what I said? Han Shilin's eyes flashed with a strong emotion. Di Beichen nodded, N. After Bailey Hongzhuang saw Di Beichen's performance behind the screen, her heart couldn't help but sink. She didn't expect that Di Beichen would believe what Han Shilin said. Di Beichen had always said that he believed in her the most and never doubted her, but now he said such words to Han Shilin. Chapter 3795. It must be that Han Shilin just came back, and Beichen feels guilty, so he said such words just to comfort her. Bailey Hongzhuang comforted herself. If she was in his shoes, maybe she would do the same thing. It was not incomprehensible. However, she clearly noticed that Han Shilin looked at her with a bit of provocation. This woman really liked to play tricks. Beichen, I heard that you and Bailey Hongzhuang are married. Han Shilin stared at Di Beichen, and tears rolled down like broken pearls. My goal since I was a child is to marry you. You know it clearly. Do I have no place in your heart for so many years? Looking at Han Shilin's tearful appearance, Di Beichen was also somewhat at a loss. Shilin, don't be like this. I have liked you for so many years, and I have already decided on you. I know that you rarely have contact with women. Among the women, only Shangguaningying and I can talk to you. Shangguaningying is Xiren's sweetheart, so you will talk to her. What about me? If you don't have me in your heart, why do you always let me accompany you? Han Shilin looked at Di Beichen stubbornly, as if she had already decided on everything. Shilin, it doesn't make sense to say all this now. Hongzhuang and I are married. She is my wife. I don't care. Han Shilin rushed forward again and hugged Di Beichen tightly. As long as you have a little place for me in your heart, I am willing to accompany you. I don't ask for a status, I just want to accompany you. Shilin. Di Beichen frowned, and his expression was extremely complicated. Han Shilin raised her head in Di Beichen's arms, and her crying face looked lovely. Is this not okay? Di Beichen stared at Han Shilin, and his eyes were full of struggle. Finally, he said helplessly, Shilin, Hongzhuang will not be willing. Hongzhuang will not be willing. This sentence exploded in Bailey Hongzhuang's mind. Di Beichen said that she would not be willing, didn't that mean that Di Beichen was willing in his heart? Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang felt that it was difficult to accept. For a long time, all she wanted was to be with Di Beichen. She thought that Di Beichen treated her wholeheartedly. She had never thought that Di Beichen's heart had other thoughts. Other thoughts. Her heart seemed to be blocked by something, and she felt unspeakably uncomfortable. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but reach out and cover her chest. Her dark eyes stared at Di Beichen. The face that she usually felt familiar with was particularly strange at this moment. How could this be? This thought kept flashing in Bailey Hongzhuang's mind. She couldn't believe that the final result would become like this. She had been so firm and had been so convinced, but Di Beichen's answer at this moment was tantamount to giving her a blow. Han Shilin's sarcastic words before echoed in her ears. Was she really too confident? Recalling Di Beichen's kindness to her, and the original oath was still vivid in her mind. Bailey Hongzhuang only felt a stabbing pain in her heart, making it difficult for her to breathe. Chapter 3796. Han Shilin looked at Di Beichen affectionately, her eyes full of anticipation. That kind of affection was like a moth darting into a flame. As long as Di Beichen gave a positive answer, she would be willing to put down everything and stay by his side. Di Beichen lowered his head and stared into those watery eyes before finally nodding his head. Seeing this scene, Han Shiling's face suddenly lit up with a happy smile. Beichen, I knew that there must be a place for me in your heart. Han Shiling's heart was overflowing with joy. She couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang's position. Her expression was clearly telling Bailey Hongzhuang, you've lost. Bailey Hongzhuang stood in a daze as she looked at Di Beichen who was hugging Han Shiling. She opened her mouth but felt as if an invisible hand was strangling her neck, making her unable to say a word. Her heart suddenly felt empty. Compared to the suppressed heartache, this empty feeling was even more unbearable. Bailey Hongzhuang only felt that her firm belief had completely collapsed at this moment. It turned out that Beichen wasn't that sincere towards her. It was just that she had always been too confident. She didn't know if it was because Beichen had always been too good at pretending in front of her, or if it was because she was too trusting of others that she ended up in this helpless situation. Bailey Hongzhuang retracted her gaze and no longer looked at the two people. She felt suffocated if she looked at them any longer. Her body slowly slid to the ground. She couldn't help but reach out her hands to hug herself. She felt a chill on her body. This coldness spread from the bottom of her heart and couldn't be warmed up at all. From the first time she met Di Beichen to the various interactions later, all the scenes appeared in front of her eyes. Her eyes unconsciously became misty and tears flowed down uncontrollably, soaking her sleeves. Why? Why? This thought kept appearing in Bailey Hongzhuang's mind. The ground was cold, but it couldn't compare to the chill in her heart. How would she face Di Beichen from now on? How was she going to tell her parents? However, at this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze suddenly froze. No, that can't be. Bailey Hongzhuang's misty eyes gradually became firm. Beichen wouldn't do this to me. My judgment can't be wrong. She clearly remembered that although Beichen cared about Han Shiling's help in the past, when she stood on the opposite side of Han Shiling, Beichen had always stood firmly on her side. From the beginning to the end, he had never shown any interest in Han Shiling. If Beichen really did like Han Shiling, then he could just be together with Han Shiling. Why would he need to go through so much trouble? Bailey Hongzhuang gradually became clear-headed. Her mind was filled with the scenes of Di Beichen protecting her. From the beginning to the end, between her and Han Shiling, Di Beichen had always chosen her. Beichen definitely couldn't have any personal feelings for Han Shiling. He was deeply in love with her. Why would he do such a thing? Bailey Hongzhuang wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and slowly stood up from the ground. She immediately pushed the screen aside and looked at the two people in front of her. Upon seeing Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Beichen's face quickly became flustered. Wife! Wife, listen to my explanation. Chapter 3797. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Beichen hurriedly walked in front of her and held her hands tightly. Wife, listen to me. It's not like what you see. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the anxious Di Beichen in front of her and her lips slowly curled into a mocking smile. I've already seen through it. You're not Beichen and Han Shiling is already dead. You're just an illusion. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Beichen and Han Shiling's faces were filled with fear. In the next moment, the scene in front of them shattered like a mirror and disappeared in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. Unknowingly, the trial area was filled with cultivators. This level of excitement was unprecedented in the Devil Training Tower. Almost all the cultivators who knew about this had rushed over. Even though the trial area was empty, it was now filled with cultivators. Some cultivators also wanted to squeeze in to see what was going on. Unfortunately, there were just too many cultivators inside and there was no place for them to stand. It's already the third day and the two of them still haven't come out after going in. Could it be that the two of them can really obtain the inheritance? Previously, everyone was certain that Bailey Hongzhuang and Han Xiling could not obtain the Hua city's inheritance. Now, no one dared to make such a claim. This was because Bailey Hongzhuang and Han Xiling had already used their performance to prove that they had already passed the third trial. Once they passed the third trial, they would be able to possess a murderous aura. Thinking of this possibility, everyone found it hard to believe. I never thought that they would be so powerful. If only one of them had lasted until now, it would be fine. But the two of them have lasted until now. This is just too shocking. They've already reached the third trial. I heard that the third trial is the simplest and most difficult trial. It won't be easy to pass it. If they can really obtain the inheritance, I'll have to ask them about the secret of passing the trial when they come out. After all, I don't believe that there's no secret to the inheritance of 3 people in a team. Everyone nodded. Half of the third day had already passed. Although they were unwilling to admit it, they already felt that Bailey Hongzhuang and Gu Shijiu would most likely obtain the final inheritance. If there really is a secret, that would be great. Of course. It is said that this killing intent field is extraordinary when used. It is of great help to cultivators. A group of cultivators was drooling endlessly, and in their minds, they had already begun to think about how to get the information from Bailey Hongzhuang's mouth. When Bailey Hongzhuang woke up from the illusion, her vision was still filled with corpses and a sea of blood. The shocking red color stimulated her nerves. A sense of shock crept onto her face. Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but sigh. Could it be that I was too tired and had a dream? This dream was too realistic. But I've never had a dream like this before. Bailey Hongzhuang felt a little helpless. She had always trusted Di Beichen and had never thought in this direction. She never thought that she would have a dream like this. It was really unexpected. Chapter 3798. Even though she knows that it was all fake, she still felt terrible when she recalled it. Fortunately, it had only been a strange dream. This kind of thing would never happen in reality. Bailey Hongzhuang cursed silently. Beichen's feelings for her were clear as day. If she were to have any doubts in the future, it would not be right. Just then, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly felt a powerful energy entering her body. She quickly raised her head and looked around her. She was shocked to find that streaks of blood-red energy had suddenly appeared from the corpses on the ground and were surging into her body. When she discovered this energy, Bailey Hongzhuang was shocked. She had no idea what was going on and did not know whether this energy was good or bad. However, Bailey Hongzhuang soon realized that this energy was murderous intent. Could this be my reward for passing the second stage? Bailey Hongzhuang's lips slowly curled into a smile. She could now confirm that this energy would not harm her. On the contrary, it would be quite beneficial to her. Aside from a reward, she could not think of any other possibility. Immediately after, Bailey Hongzhuang closed her eyes and calmly absorbed the energy that was rushing towards her. It looks like the third day is almost over. Does this mean that Beichen and the others have succeeded? Wen Ziren could not hide the joy on his face. Even though he had always believed that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen would succeed, he still found it hard to believe when this had actually happened. The inheritance of the Demon Training Tower was notoriously difficult. However, Beichen and Hongzhuang had both succeeded. Just by looking at the looks of disbelief on the faces of the surrounding cultivators, one could tell how incredible this was. Mo Yinjue's eyes darkened as he nodded. I think that should be the case. Now that we've reached the final step, the chances of failure shouldn't be too high. If they really succeed, that would be incredible. Ao Lingxiao couldn't help but sigh. Normally, it would be extremely difficult for a single cultivator to successfully pass the test. Now, 3 of them had appeared. This was definitely big news that would shock the entire Penglai Island. He didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen to be so powerful. They were really heroes. Just based on this point alone, the cultivators of Penglai Palace could not compare with them. If Chu Yunyao knew about this, she would definitely have a headache. I'm really looking forward to Hongzhuang and the others coming out. I don't know how many people will envy them. Shangguan Yingying clasped her hands together and her face was full of excitement. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded, and then, a golden light quietly appeared. Noticing this ray of light, the cultivators present could not help but be stunned. The originally noisy environment also quieted down at this moment. After Mo Yinjue noticed the golden light, the smile on his face widened. He was no stranger to this ray of light. Everyone saw 3 golden words appear on the stone wall in front of the challenge area, Di Beichen. This was a stone wall that recorded the inheritance. Only the name of the cultivator who obtained the inheritance would appear on this stone wall. Therefore, the appearance of this name meant that Di Beichen had successfully obtained the inheritance. Chapter 3799. Success. Beichen succeeded. Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but jump up in excitement after noticing the resplendent golden name. The inheritance of the Devil Training Pagoda was truly an incredible inheritance. Beichen really succeeded. Xiren couldn't help but wave his fist, his face full of excitement. Beichen is still as abnormal as before. Breaking through wasn't a problem for him at all. That's really good news. Mo Yinjue's lips curled into a faint smile, a deep light flashing in his eyes. Ao Lingxiao didn't say anything, but his gaze quietly fell on the door of the breaking room. His handsome face quietly climbed up with a hint of determination. He felt that it was time for him to voice his conjecture. No matter if his conjecture was correct or not, they would be able to confirm it. Not long after Di Beichen's name appeared, the door of the breaking room suddenly opened. Immediately after, Di Beichen's figure appeared in everyone's line of sight. Looking at the extraordinarily handsome figure, everyone's eyes flashed with envy. He's out. Di Beichen is out. I never thought that this guy would actually be able to obtain the inheritance of the Devil Training Pagoda. How enviable. Murderous aura. I've only heard of its name, but I don't know what kind of amazing effects it has. This Di Beichen is also the inheritor of the blood aura. With 2 inheritances gathered together, this Di Beichen is really amazing. After Di Beichen came out, he immediately noticed Xiren and the others. After noticing that Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't beside Xiren and the others, his dark eyes flashed with a bright light. Beichen, congratulations. Shangguan Yingying was the first to speak. Xiren walked to Di Beichen's side with a smile. Beichen, you really live up to your reputation. You're as abnormal as always. Beichen, congratulations. Mo Yinjue and Ao Lingxiao both congratulated him. Di Beichen's lips curled into a smile as he cupped his hands and said, "Many thanks. Hongzhuang hasn't come out yet?" "No." Xiren nodded. "Last time, you husband and wife received the inheritance of the blood aura together. It seems that this time, you will receive the inheritance of the killing aura together. Since the time has come, Hongzhuang's inheritance should be a done deal," Mo Yinjue said with a smile. Di Beichen nodded slightly, and the corners of his eyes and brows were also raised with joy. "That's great, but why are there suddenly so many people around here? Isn't that obvious?" "Naturally, it's because of you and Hongzhuang." Shangguan Yingying smiled. "Previously, everyone bet that you wouldn't be able to make it through the first stage. However, as you stayed inside longer and longer, everyone couldn't hold back their curiosity. So, they all rushed over to see for themselves. I see. Di Baichen's face flashed with understanding. He thought that everyone came after knowing the result. He didn't expect that everyone had been so concerned about this matter before. Beichen, is the content of this stage difficult? Sheng Guaniying asked curiously. Di Beichen thought for a moment and said, it's not that difficult. However, if it's not difficult, it's not easy to pass. It's that complicated. Chapter 3800. The most important thing when challenging a trial is to be fearless and always believe in what you believe in. That way, your chances of success will greatly increase. As he spoke, Di Beichen could not help but look at Mo Yinjue and said, Yinjue, you should feel the same, right? Mo Yinjue nodded, that's right. The most important thing is to be fearless. Once your confidence is shaken, then you won't be able to pass the trial. When Xiren and Sheng Guaniying glanced at each other when they heard this, and they seemed to be lost in thought. If it was a test of battle power, they might be able to make a judgment. However, if it was a test of one's heart, then it would be very difficult to make a judgment. After all, the human heart was the most complicated. Everyone's state of mind was different and the tests they faced would naturally be completely different as well. Therefore, they were unable to make a judgment based on this point. Bailey Hongzhuang closed her eyes and absorbed the endless energy that was surging into her body. She felt the murderous aura on her body continuously gathering. When the murderous aura gathered to a certain level, she felt a kind of aura quietly forming. She was not unfamiliar with this feeling. Back when she had first obtained the blood aura, it had been the same situation. Could it be that this murderous aura was a murderous aura? I've clearly only passed through 2 trials. How could I have received the inheritance? Bailey Hongzhuang was puzzled. She had thought that she did not know how abnormal the 3rd trial was. She never thought that she had already received the inheritance. Could it be that the dream I had previously was the 3rd trial? Very quickly, Bailey Hongzhuang realized where the problem lay. Everyone knew that the trials of the Demon Training Tower were divided into 3 levels. It was impossible for her to have received the inheritance after only 2 trials. Therefore, that dream must have been the 3rd trial. The Demon Training Tower is indeed powerful. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed, if it wasn't for my trust in Beichen, I'm afraid that I would have failed in the 3rd trial. Previously, she had killed until she was completely exhausted in the 2nd trial. Her mind was also very tired. Then, she had fallen into that kind of situation. She had entered the illusion when her consciousness was at its most blurred. Under such circumstances, it was very easy to be confused. Fortunately, she woke up at the last moment and was not deceived by the illusion. Otherwise, she would have failed. She had always thought that her mind was strong enough, but Beichen was the person she cared about the most. She didn't expect that this test would start with Beichen, and she almost fell for it. Now that she thought about it, she also felt that she was too stupid before. She trusted Beichen so much, but in the end, she still felt heartache. There are indeed very few people who can pass such a test. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head and sighed. One had to overcome one's own inner demons in order to obtain the inheritance. As the murderous aura gradually took shape, Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation began to rise rapidly. 8th level of the Purple Realm. 9th level of the Purple Realm. Her aura continued to rise, but Bailey Hongzhuang didn't know what realm she had reached. When everything in front of Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes returned to normal and she once again appeared in the stone room, the corners of her lips curled into a smile. She slowly clenched her hands into fists and felt the abundant energy in her body. Her smile widened, the inheritance of the Demon Training Tower is indeed extraordinary. My power has increased by a lot. Chapter 38:01. I just don't know what level of strength I have now. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly. Her current strength was not the same as it had been 1,000 years ago. She had no way of determining it. However, according to her intuition, there was definitely a realm above the purple realm. She just didn't know about it. It seems that we'll have to wait until we return to the Penglai Palace to find out. Lord Long and the others must know about the situation after the Purple Realm. There were many strong cultivators in the Penglai Palace. She believed that there would definitely be cultivators above the Purple Realm. Perhaps they would be able to learn more about the Dark Power. With the spread of the news that Di Beichen had obtained the inheritance, the number of cultivators gathered in the breakthrough area increased. Almost everyone wanted to find out what had happened. Di Beichen has already obtained the inheritance and left. Why is Bailey Hongzhuang still inside? Could it be that the inheritance doesn't only last 3 days? She just stayed inside for a long time but didn't succeed? That's possible. Di Beichen's success alone is already very abnormal. If Bailey Hongzhuang also succeeds, I have to wonder if there's something wrong with this challenge area. However, just as this cultivator said this, a golden light suddenly flashed. It was a complete slap in the face. A shining name appeared on the stone wall again, Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's names were written together just like that, stimulating everyone's nerves. Is there any justice in this world? A cultivator could not help but hold his head. It's only been 2 or 3 months, and 3 inheritors have appeared in succession. This is too exciting. What's going on? Either none of them appear in 100 years, or so many of them appear at once. This is too irregular. I think you should stop comforting yourself. It's not about the content of the challenge at all. It's just that Di Beichen and the others are really powerful. There were also many calm cultivators present. Even though this news had shocked them a lot, but thinking about the previous performance of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, although this was unexpected, it was not unacceptable if they thought about it carefully. At this moment, a white figure slowly walked out of the challenge room. Envious gazes swept over to Bailey Hongzhuang, only to see that this woman had a beauty that could topple cities, swaying with the wind as she walked. She was clearly indifferent and alienated, but she gave people a feeling of elegance like an immortal. For a moment, the men present looked at her with blurred eyes. Fairies really did exist in this world. Her looks were outstanding and her strength was tyrannical. Such a woman was truly everyone's fantasy. As soon as Bailey Hongzhuang walked out, she realized that there was a sea of people outside. Everyone's eyes were fixed on her. She could not help but feel astonished. I never thought that so many people would come. Bailey Hongzhuang secretly sighed. Master, congratulations. You've successfully received the inheritance. Xiao He jumped excitedly. Previously, when Master was challenging the challenge, I couldn't speak at all. I almost suffocated to death. Now, I can finally speak. Congratulations, Master. Xiao Bai and Bai Shi quickly followed up with their congratulations. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. You're the ones with the sweet tongues. Chapter 38:02. Di Beichen came to Bailey Hongzhuang's side for the first time, his dark and bright eyes sparkling as he held Bailey Hongzhuang's soft and boneless hand. Wifey, congratulations. Beichen, did you pass? Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but ask. However, Di Beichen frowned and didn't say anything. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze couldn't help but change. She thought to herself, could it be that Beichen didn't receive the inheritance? She glanced at Mo Yinjue and the others in confusion. Mo Yinjue and Ao Lingxiao didn't say anything. However, when her gaze landed on Xiren, when Xiren couldn't help but chuckle. Hong Zhuang, you're so powerful. As your husband, Beichen naturally wouldn't be too bad. Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly stunned. When she looked at Di Beichen again, she found that the corners of his lips were slowly rising. So you lied to me on purpose. How would I dare? Di Beichen smiled dotingly. That's great. You've all successfully received the inheritance. This is great news. I'm sure sect leader Situ and the others will be proud of you when they know about this. Sheng Guanying clapped her hands, her eyes filled with yearning. When Ziren looked at Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang. Although I can't determine your current cultivation, I can feel that your auras have improved a lot. Hearing this, Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang looked at each other and smiled. This isn't a good place to talk. Let's go back first. At this moment, Mo Yunjue suddenly reminded them. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked around and saw that everyone was looking at them curiously, wanting to know what they were talking about. Di Beichen nodded. Okay. It wasn't until they left the challenge area that the cultivators in the challenge area left one after another. Beichen, what are your cultivations now? As soon as they entered the house, when Ziren's curious gaze fell upon Bailey Hongzhuang and Lin Yiqian. He was really curious to see how much their powers would increase after successfully clearing the stage. Di Beichen frowned and said, I should be above the 9th level of the Purple Realm, but I can't tell what level I am exactly at. That's right, me too. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded, Beichen's cultivation should be higher than mine. He was originally 1 level higher than me. In that case, Hongzhuang, you're already above the 9th level of the Purple Realm? Yes. In my opinion, we should have entered an even higher level. It's just that we can't tell at the moment. As he spoke, Di Beichen couldn't help but look at Mo Yunjue and said, Yunjue, are you the same? Yes. Ziren chuckled. It seems that the inheritance of the Devil Training Tower is really amazing. If we relied on our own cultivation, it would probably take a long time to reach this level of cultivation. Now, we've only succeeded in clearing the stage and our cultivation has increased by so much. How long have I been in the challenge area? Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but ask. I feel like I've been in there for a long time. Chapter 3803. Only 3 days. Bailey Hongzhuang was astonished, the feeling inside is completely different. I thought I stayed inside for a long time. Luckily, it was only 3 days. Speaking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes suddenly lit up, and she couldn't help but sigh. It's only been 3 days, but my cultivation has improved so much. If I could repeatedly break through this barrier, it would be amazing. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Beichen and the rest couldn't help but chuckle. If the situation is really like that, wouldn't it be amazing? In just 1 year, I'll become the #1 expert. Huh, that's true. As for this cultivation, we'll ask Master Long when we return to Pinglai Palace. He'll definitely know about it, Di Beichen said slowly. At this moment, Ao Lingxiao, who had been silent all this time, suddenly said, There's no need to go back. I know what realm you're in now. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest couldn't help but be stunned. Their gazes fell on Ao Lingxiao, you know. That's right. Ao Lingxiao nodded, I know. Above the Purple Realm is the Starlight Realm. You're in the Starlight Realm now. Ao Lingxiao looked at Di Beichen and the rest, then continued, Have stars condensed in your dantian? Bailey Hongzhuang looked inside and realized that the situation was as Ao Lingxiao said, That's right, stars have really condensed. This is the Starlight Realm. The way to determine the cultivation level is very simple. The Starlight Realm is divided into 9 levels. 1 star is Starlight Stage 1, 2 stars is Starlight Stage 2. I see. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest immediately understood. So it seems that I'm now a Star Aurora rank 1 cultivator. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said. I'm in Starlight Stage 2. Di Beichen said. Mo Yunjue nodded. I'm the same. From the looks of it, you guys should have increased by 3 levels, Xiren said. This increase doesn't seem to be as great as when you were in the blood refining tower. No, that's not how you judge it. Ao Lingxiao shook his head. Breaking through from the purple realm to the starlight realm may seem like it's only 1 level of difference, but it's extremely difficult to cross. These 2 levels were completely different realms. If one wanted to go from the 9th level of the purple realm to the 1st level of the astral realm, one would need a certain amount of luck or a huge amount of help. Otherwise, it would be too difficult to make the leap. On this Penglai Island, many cultivators were stuck at the purple realm level 9 and were unable to step into the astral level 1. It can only be said that the Demon Training Tower's inheritance is truly amazing, to actually be able to help you directly cross this barrier. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others could not help but feel surprised when they heard Ao Lingxiao's words. They had never thought that it would be so difficult to break through. From the looks of it, we've really gained a huge advantage. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Although she didn't know much about this, she could tell from Ao Lingxiao's serious expression that he was telling the truth. However, after thinking about it carefully, she also felt that Ao Lingxiao's words were very reasonable. The purple realm and the astral realm were already different. Naturally, they were 2 completely different realms. Chapter 3804. Hearing Shang Guanying's praise, Ao Lingxiao smiled faintly, but his gaze couldn't help but fall on Di Beichen. He had already made up his mind that as long as Di Beichen could successfully obtain the inheritance, he would tell Di Beichen about it. Thinking of this, Ao Lingxiao opened his mouth and said, Beichen. However, at this moment, a knock on the door suddenly sounded. Hearing the knock, everyone in the room couldn't help but look at each other, not knowing who would come looking for them at this time. As the door opened, everyone saw the person who came, and a hint of surprise appeared on everyone's faces. Young Master D, Miss Bailey, I really have to congratulate you today. Steward Qin's face was filled with a happy smile, and there was no lack of surprise in the depths of his eyes. Although he knew that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others came to Penglai for the murderous aura field, he never thought that they would actually be able to obtain it. After all, every cultivator who came to the Demon Training Tower wanted to obtain the murderous aura field, but in the end, it was rare to be able to obtain it. However, this time, 3 inheritors suddenly appeared. Even as the steward of the Demon Training Tower, he was extremely surprised. Thank you, Steward Qin. Di Beichen cupped his fists. I didn't expect young Master Mo to be good friends with you. It's rare for the inheritance of the Demon Training Tower to appear, and the moment it appeared, it fell on you guys. It's really amazing. We were just lucky. Mo Yunjue said. Steward Qin waved his hand. If it was anything else, it would be fine, but the inheritance of the Demon Training Tower relies on strength, so there's no possibility of it being fake. Actually, I don't have any other intentions for coming here. I'm just here to congratulate you guys. For so long, the Demon Training Tower hasn't had an inheritor, and many people thought that it was impossible to succeed. Now that you guys have succeeded, it really makes my Demon Training Tower appear in everyone's eyes once again. Although Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had obtained the inheritance, which could be said to be a great benefit, Steward Qin didn't care at all. Such an inheritance could be obtained by those with strength. The reason why it was impossible to obtain it was undoubtedly because one's strength wasn't strong enough. Actually, with this kind of inheritance, the Demon Training Tower should be the most powerful force on Penglai Island. Unfortunately, the chance of obtaining the inheritance was too small. Many cultivators had already thought that it was impossible. In addition, the atmosphere of the demon training tower was very cruel and bloody, so many cultivators didn't come. Regarding this, he felt extremely helpless. He had always hoped that the demon training tower would be able to flourish. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two had obtained the inheritance one after another, it was tantamount to promoting the devil training pagoda. Since Mo Yinjue had obtained the inheritance, the number of cultivators who came to the devil training pagoda had been increasing. He believed that once the news of Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen also receiving the inheritance spread out, there would definitely be more cultivators coming. Therefore, he had a good impression of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. At the same time, he was amazed by their strength. The friends of geniuses were all geniuses. This was completely true. Hearing Steward Qin's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others laughed. Steward Qin, in the end, we still took advantage of this matter. Chapter 3805. However, I can guarantee that as long as you are in the residential area or the cultivation area, there will be no cultivators who will disturb you. Thank you, Steward Qin. Di Beichen said. You're welcome. As they sent Steward Qin off, they also discovered that there were many cultivators outside the house looking into the house. It was obvious that they wanted to ask them about the secret to passing the trial. However, when they closed the door, no one came to disturb them. It was obvious that Steward Qin had appeared. Fortunately, Steward Qin appeared. Otherwise, we would have been in trouble for the next few days. Ziren sighed with emotion. Although he only took a simple glance outside, he also felt that the number of people was astonishing. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded her head. Previously, when Yunju obtained the inheritance, there were many people looking for her. However, more people thought that it was a coincidence, so the number of people was a bit smaller. Now that Bei Chen and I have also succeeded, everyone thinks that we have the secret. Naturally, the number of people is quite astonishing. In my opinion, we can't stay in this demon training tower for long. It's actually very troublesome to attract too much attention. Di Beichen slowly said, after Ziren and Ying have finished, we will set off for the Penglai Palace. All right. Ziren nodded. Ying and I are about to break through in the next 2 days. After we break through, we will go and pass the trial. At this time, Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze couldn't help but fall on Ao Lingxiao, and said, Ao Lingxiao, what did you want to say to Beichen before? After Bailey Hongzhuang's reminder, everyone remembered that Ao Lingxiao had indeed wanted to talk to Di Beichen about something, but was disturbed by the appearance of Steward Qin. Ao Lingxiao was slightly stunned, then waved his hand and said, nothing. Seeing that, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Ao Lingxiao thoughtfully. She felt that Ao Lingxiao's expression when he opened his mouth was a bit complicated, and it didn't seem like he was going to talk about something unimportant. However, since Ao Lingxiao was unwilling to say anything, there was no point in her continuing to ask. After Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had also successfully obtained the inheritance, when Ziren and Shangguan Yingying began their closed-door training wholeheartedly. Now that 3 people in their team had successfully obtained the inheritance, they naturally wanted to succeed as well. The news of 3 inheritors appearing in the demon training tower spread like the wind through the entire Penglai island. For a moment, the demon training tower became a hot place. All the cultivators who felt that they had a glimmer of hope rushed towards the demon training tower without stopping, and the number of cultivators who were rejected by the trial area was even more shocking. Penglai Palace. Yanwei, this is really a big deal. Yi Zihua walked into Long Yanwei's residence with a face full of smiles. Now, he really couldn't help but admire Long Yanwei's foresight. He had really dug up a treasure. What happened? Long Yanwei looked at Yi Zihua. Judging from your expression, it doesn't seem like something big happened. Yi Zihua shook his head. No, something big did happen this time. It's just a good thing. Good thing. Long Yanwei raised his eyebrows. After thinking for a moment, he couldn't think of a good thing that could have happened. He said, "Don't keep me in suspense. Didn't you specially come here to talk about something? Just say it directly." Chapter 3806. Recently, the demon training pagoda has been in the limelight, because after so long, another inheritor has finally appeared. A few days ago, an inheritor appeared, and now, 2 more inheritors have appeared. Recently, many cultivators have been rushing to the demon training pagoda, wanting to take advantage of this wave of craze to see if they have this luck. Yi Zihua said. Hearing this, Long Yanwei couldn't help but chuckle. The inheritance of the demon training pagoda completely relies on strength, and has nothing to do with luck. Those fellows who want to try their luck are just indulging in fantasy. However, this is the good news of the demon training pagoda. What does it have to do with us? When Long Yanwei finished speaking, he seemed to have suddenly thought of something, and his expression suddenly changed. Could it be that the cultivator who obtained the inheritance is a disciple of our Penglai Palace? Yi Zihua smiled and nodded. Your reaction isn't too slow. Previously, Beichen and the others said that they wanted to go to the demon training pagoda to explore and see if they could obtain the inheritance. Long Yanwei narrowed his eyes. The people who obtained the inheritance couldn't be them, right? Huh, you guessed it right. Yi Zihua's face was full of smiles. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen both obtained the inheritance, and now the entire Penglai Palace is talking about them, and now they're famous again. Now it seems that these 2 little fellows are really geniuses. Back then, obtaining the inheritance of the blood training pagoda was already very impressive, and now they even obtained the inheritance of the demon training pagoda. After the palace master heard this news, he was very happy. Originally, this matter would make the demon training pagoda famous, but Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang were disciples of the Penglai Palace, so the Penglai Palace was also in the limelight. Needless to say, this time, the number of cultivators who want to join the Penglai Palace will definitely reach a new high. Even though he had such a guess, after receiving Yi Zihua's confirmation, Long Yanwei still felt that it was somewhat inconceivable. I didn't think that they would actually succeed. Yeah. Yi Zihua's black eyes were filled with admiration. Yanwei, now everyone is talking about your discerning eyes. Previously, I thought that the price of using 3 demon pet eggs to recruit them was a bit too high, but now, it seems that it's all worth it. The corners of Long Yanwei's lips slowly curled up into an arc. From the looks of it, I've hit the jackpot. There are a total of 3 cultivators who have recently obtained inheritances in the demon training tower. Currently, many forces have already gone to recruit them. The Hall Master hopes that we can recruit them as well. Long Yanwei was surprised when he heard this. There's actually a 3rd person. Does this person not belong to any faction? This person has also just arrived at Penglai Island from the outside world. Now, he has already become a character that all the major powers are fighting to invite. We have to hurry and head to the demon training tower. Long Yanwei frowned. I've never been good at this kind of thing, so I won't go. That won't do. The Hall Master has clearly said that you must go. Why should I go there? Long Yanwei shook his head. It was just a coincidence that I recruited Di Beichen and the others. Purposely going outside to recruit cultivators is not something I like to do. You don't know this. This cultivator is a friend of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. The Hall Master thinks that with your relationship with Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, once you make a move, you will definitely be able to recruit this cultivator back. Yi Zihua said with a smile. Chapter 3807. This cultivator and Hongzhuang know each other. Long Yanwei looked at Yi Zihua in disbelief. Wasn't this too much of a coincidence? Yi Zihua nodded, yes, this news is already well known. It seems that the cultivator came from the outside world to find them, and now they have successfully met. In my opinion, our Penglai Palace has the highest chance of success. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun are both in Penglai Palace. Since the cultivator came to find them, he should not join other forces. If the three inheritors are all disciples of our Penglai Palace, then it will be really glorious. Long Yanwei had completely understood at this moment. His thoughts were the same as the palace masters. The cultivator would most likely join their Penglai Palace. I didn't expect that the cultivators in the outside world are so amazing. Long Yanwei sighed, no one in Penglai Island has succeeded in obtaining this inheritance for so many years, but the three little guys in the outside world have obtained it. This is really exciting. You'd better pack up and get ready to go now. Although our Penglai Palace has the highest chance of success in this matter, if we fail, I'm afraid the palace master will be very unhappy. It seems that I can't avoid this matter. Wait for me for a moment. I'll pack up and leave. Chu Yunyao also knew that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun had obtained the inheritance, and her face suddenly became extremely ugly. Damn it, I didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang's luck to be so good. She even succeeded in breaking through the magic training tower. Chu Yunyao's face could not hide the anger, and she reached out and directly threw the teacup to the ground. What she wanted was for Bailey Hongzhuang and the others to be covered in dirt. However, now that Bailey Hongzhuang was in the limelight, how could she not be angry? After hearing the news, Chu Yunshang's eyes also darkened. Yunyao, I'm afraid you're in big trouble this time. You didn't succeed last time. This time, once Bailey Hongzhuang and others come back, it will be very difficult for you to deal with them again. Listening to Chu Yunshang's words, Chu Yunyao was non-committal. The murderous aura is indeed powerful, but I can still fight against them. Sister, why do you have to boost the morale of others and diminish your own? Chu Yunshang shook her head. I'm not trying to boost his morale. I'm just telling the truth. It is said that as long as one obtains the inheritance of the Devil Training Tower, one's cultivation will increase by a lot. Previously, although the cultivation of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others was slightly weaker than yours, after they return this time, their strength might not be weaker than yours. They might even be stronger than you. Haha. Chu Yunyao chuckled. Elder sister, aren't you being too paranoid? Back then, Bailey Hongzhuang was only at the 6th level of the Purple Realm. Even if her cultivation had increased, could it be that she could advance to the Astral Radiance Realm? Aren't you about to break through to the Starlight Realm? With your help, do you still need to worry about Bailey Hongzhuang and others? After thinking for a moment, Chu Yunshang said in a deep voice, Bailey Hongzhuang and others can't be underestimated. I'll try to successfully break through to the Astral Radiance Realm before they come back. In this way, if they really come to find trouble, we don't have to worry too much. Since you can't go out recently, you might as well cultivate in seclusion and strive to improve your cultivation. Chapter 3808. Even if it's very difficult to break through, you can't slack off. Chu Yunshang looked at Chu Yunyao helplessly. Since the incident with Duan Huali, Chu Yunyao not only changed her temperament, but also did not practice as hard as before. In this regard, she felt extremely helpless, but there was nothing she could do. Where did I slack off? Chu Yunyao looked unhappy. I'm just not as lucky as you. Why do you always speak with such an attitude now? I'm your sister. Can't you talk to me properly? Everything I do is for your own good. Chu Yunshang looked at Chu Yunyao earnestly. We can't limit our eyes to this. There is a wider world behind. Are you going to stay here all the time? You have to think about it. Even if you insist on liking Duan Huali, once Duan Huali enters the star realm, he and you will not be in the same world. Don't be fooled by how Duan Huali likes to flirt with other women, he is very attentive towards cultivation. Chu Yunyao originally wanted to refute Chu Yunshang, but when she heard Chu Yunshang's words, she couldn't help falling into silence. Seeing that Chu Yunyao finally listened to her words, Chu Yunshang continued, "Don't look at Bailey Hongzhuang and others who are weaker than you before. They are people who are favored by the Hall Master and Long Darren. After staying in Penglai Palace for so long, you should also know a lot of practitioners. Although their strength was not very good before, their later development is very amazing. During this time, He Yunjun also helped me inquire about a lot of news. As far as I know, Bailey Hongzhuang and others are extremely hardworking in cultivation. They have only been in Penglai Island for a short time, but the progress of their cultivation base is very terrible. Not only that, from their ability to fight beyond their level, you can know how solid their basic skills are. Since you've already offended such an opponent, you have to be more careful. Once they become stronger, you'll be the one in trouble." Chu Yunshang looked slightly dignified. Since knowing that Chu Yunyao was going to deal with Bailey Hongzhuang and others, she had a bad feeling in her heart. If she offended other practitioners, it would be fine, but it was such a practitioner who was favored by everyone. She was very clear how shrewd the Hall Master's vision was, and Long Yanwei had seen countless people. Since he could be favored by them, he would not be a simple person in the future. Now Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen have obtained the inheritance of the Demon Training Tower, which proves their strength and talent. Chu Yunyao's eyes darkened. Is too exaggerated. But sister, you are exaggerating. But. There, it. And I. Wait. 2. We. Chapter 3809. After passing the trial, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen rested for 2 days. Although it was only a short 3 days, this kind of test was very tiring for them. They didn't feel tired physically, but they were mentally exhausted. This exhaustion was filled with vicissitudes. Breaking through the inner demons was extremely difficult, and they didn't want to think about the scene when they broke through. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had a tacit understanding not to ask each other what they had seen in the last assessment. In fact, they also had some guesses in their hearts. After all, they knew each other very well. Sheng Guanying and Wen Ziren entered closed-door cultivation wholeheartedly. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had both obtained inheritances, the pressure on them had increased. Once they succeeded, their strength would improve rapidly. Otherwise, the gap between their cultivations would be completely widened. With such a huge gap between them, it would be impossible for them to catch up without some kind of special opportunity. As companions, they naturally didn't want to be left behind like this. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two obtain inheritances, Ao Lingxiao couldn't hold back anymore. Back then, he had indeed failed to pass the trial in the Demon Training Tower. However, after learning some experiences from Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, he couldn't help but want to give it a try. After all, he was already here. If he could obtain an inheritance, it would be a good thing. As a result, while Ziren and Di Beichen were still in closed-door cultivation, Ao Lingxiao directly went to pass the trial. However, Ao Lingxiao's attempt didn't go as smoothly as he had expected. In the end, he still failed. Ao Lingxiao, the trial itself is a bit abnormal. Once you overcome your inner demons, this shouldn't be a problem. Di Beichen patted Ao Lingxiao's shoulder and comforted him. Hearing that, Ao Lingxiao smiled, "My inner demons aren't as strong as yours. I already knew that when I came to pass the trial. Originally, when I saw you succeed, I also wanted to give it a try. However, the final result was still not enough. It doesn't matter. If we don't succeed this time, we can always try again, Bailey Hongzhuang said. However, Ao Lingxiao waved his hand. This matter has already become my inner demon. How difficult is it to overcome it? After saying that, Ao Lingxiao didn't say anything else and directly walked towards his residence. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but look at each other. I think there's something wrong with Ao Lingxiao. His face is somewhat pale, and he seems to have lost his soul. It seems that the situation is as he said. That is no longer a demonic barrier, but a heart demon. Otherwise, his expression wouldn't be so ugly. Di Baichen's deep eyes flickered with the light of contemplation. Everyone would see something they didn't want to see the most during the assessment. It was just that some people could accept such a scene, while others could not. Judging from Ao Lingxiao's soulless expression, this scene was something he couldn't accept. Otherwise, he wouldn't have such an expression. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. She faintly felt that Ao Lingxiao's current special personality might have something to do with something he couldn't accept. Chapter 38:10. Ever since Ao Lingxiao failed the test, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had not seen him leave his room for a few days. Looks like Ao Lingxiao has a lot of sad things to worry about. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been in such a state for so many days. Xiren walked out of his room after successfully breaking through to the 7th level of the Purple Realm. He couldn't help but sigh after knowing about Ao Lingxiao's situation. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Anyway, we're not in a hurry to leave. We'll just wait for him to straighten out his thoughts. Xiren, you've already broken through. Yingying should be breaking through soon, right? That's right. Xiren nodded. Yingying's speed is slightly slower than mine. However, it should be tomorrow. Cultivating in this cultivation area is indeed quite fast. Just as everyone was conversing, a familiar voice suddenly entered their ears. You little fellows are really here. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others quickly turned around. As expected, Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua were walking towards them with smiles on their faces. Master Long, Instructor Yi. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others bowed with a trace of astonishment in their eyes. Why are you guys here? As Bailey Hongzhuang and the others spoke, Mo Yunjue's gaze also fell on Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua. So this person was the Master Long that everyone was talking about. Yi Zihua didn't immediately reply to Bailey Hongzhuang. Instead, his gaze quietly fell on Mo Yunjue. Mo Yunjue was wearing a black robe. His handsome face exuded a bone-chilling coldness, and his eyes were also cold. Just as the rumors said, this Mo Yunjue was a cold person. If I'm not wrong, this should be Mo Yunjue, young Master Mo. I am indeed Mo Yunjue. Mo Yunjue cupped his hands and said. Seeing this scene, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others suddenly understood. It turned out that Master Long and Master Long came for Mo Yunjue. However, this was within their expectations. They just did not expect Penglai Palace to let Long Yanwei and Master Long come to recruit him. In the past few days, many forces had come to recruit him, but they were all rejected by Mo Yunjue. Now that they had reunited, there was no reason for them to separate. As expected, heroes come from the young. Young Master Mo was able to obtain the legacy of the Devil Training Tower at such a young age. You are truly a hero of this generation, Yi Zihua said with a smile. Senior, you flatter me. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other, finding it very funny. Usually, when they saw Yi Zihua, he had the appearance of a mentor. At this moment, seeing Yi Zihua say such words to recruit people, it was really different from his usual style. Master Long, Mentor Yi, there are many people here. Why don't we go inside and talk? Di Baichen said. Long Yanwei nodded, subconsciously looked around and nodded, okay. After everyone walked into the house, everyone's expressions also relaxed and easygoing. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were most familiar with Long Yanwei and Master Long in Penglai Palace. Even if the two were seniors, they were also very casual. Master Long, Mentor Yi, you came this time to recruit Yunju, right? Xiren said with a smile. Chapter 38:11. Master Long, didn't I rip you off last time? You've been looking at me like that ever since. Isn't this too depressing for me? When Xiren's face suddenly fell. The last time he ripped off Master Long, it was really a great deal for them. However, since then, he had been labeled as a treacherous person in Master Long's heart. When Xiren also felt very helpless about this. This was not the result he wanted. Looking at Wen Xiren's appearance, Long Yanwei could not help but chuckle. Forget it, you don't have to act pitiful in front of me. Do you think I don't know that this is all an act? Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen also had a smile in their eyes. Master Long was only like this on the surface. In fact, he had always been very good to them. Even when he was ripped off before, Master Long had never cared. Right, why isn't Shengguan Yingying here? Long Yanwei looked at Xiren and the others. One had to know that the four of them had always been together. Yingying is cultivating in seclusion. She will soon break through to the 7th level of the Purple Realm. Xiren smiled faintly. Hearing this, Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua looked at each other. They could not help but sigh in their hearts. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' improvement speed was really not slow. When they first joined the Penglai Palace, they were only at the 5th level of the Purple Realm. Now, in just a few short months, they were about to break through to the 7th level of the Purple Realm. Xiren and Shengguan Yingying already had this kind of strength before they even passed the level, not to mention Bailey Hongzhuang and the others who had already passed the level. At this moment, even Long Yanwei himself was a little emotional. The reason why he had recruited Bailey Hongzhuang and the others was because of their outstanding combat strength. More importantly, it was because Bailey Hongzhuang's special contract beast that attracted his attention. However, he himself did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang and the others to be so outstanding, far exceeding his expectations. So that's how it is. The speed of your improvement is really fast. Yi Zihua said with a smile. Previously, you were accepted as Inner Palace disciples because of an exception. After you return this time, you will truly have the qualifications to become Inner Palace disciples. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other and smiled. Indeed, when they were in the inner hall, they did not have a proper status. The way everyone looked at them made them feel very unhappy. After he returned, he believed that no one would bring up this matter again. After all, they had been looked down upon by everyone, and they were very unhappy in their hearts. Young Master Mo, I wonder if you are willing to join our Penglai Palace. Long Yanwei looked at Mo Yinjue. His usually dignified face was now amiable and approachable. Beichen and the others are Inner Palace disciples of our Penglai Palace. Since you are friends with them, why don't you join Penglai Palace as well? Mo Yinjue looked at Long Yanwei. He had come this time to help Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Now that Di Beichen's physique problem had been solved, and everyone was not ready to leave for the time being, he would naturally stay here for a while. Moreover, he also found that cultivating here was very helpful in improving his strength. Thinking of this, Mo Yinjue was about to agree. At this moment, Xiren's voice suddenly rang out, "You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."